Welcome, welcome. Can you guys hear me okay? I was a little bit worried about my microphone for a second there, but I think it should be okay. Anyway, welcome for you guys, and we are here with another vocabulary building lesson for you. Yesterday's lesson was the first time we tried something like that, and for the first time I thought it went pretty well. For those of you who are coming here for the first time, check out IELTS for All. That's our Facebook group. If you're watching live right now, the best way to support all of this free content is to click share on the video. Okay, share it with another IELTS Facebook group, share it with your timeline, tag one of your friends who is also studying for the IELTS. It doesn't really matter to me the size of the audience, but the more people that come here, the more motivation I will have to keep making these free lessons for you guys. Now, today's lesson, we are going to be focusing on education. Okay, the topic of education. I have chosen 4 IELTS speaking topics. These are part 3 speaking topics. And we are going to take them one by one. And I want you guys to write down any kind of ideas that you have about how to answer this question, whether it's a full sentence or a few sentences, if you want to type out a full answer. If you would like to just type in some vocabulary ideas, okay, some words that would be useful here, or some phrases. Okay, the more that you input, the more I will be able to check, and we will together form a list of some good vocabulary and some good phrases and things. Well, guys, let's get into it. So, how are education priorities today different from those in the past? Whew. Pretty tough topic to start with. Let me think about American culture for a moment. In America, we have a new kind of educational philosophy. Education philosophy, or a new philosophy of education. And that particular philosophy that we have these days is called No Child Left Behind. It was a kind of, George Bush instituted this new education policy. And it's more focused on standards, bringing all children up to a certain basic standard and make sure that all children meet the minimum requirement for education. Okay, I think maybe 10, 20 years ago, our priorities were different. We had much different priorities. We prioritized outstanding students. Okay, I think our economy was built on innovation. It still is in some ways. But because of that focus and that, because we were concentrating on innovation, we really prioritized certain excellent students in our education system. And you can even see that in our university system, right? Americans are proud of their university system because we have some of the highest rated universities in the world, not because the average university is good. It's more about those few special Ivy League schools or Ivy League universities that we're quite proud of. We have a lot of national pride about that. Ooh, Asma, very good idea. Different educational platforms. I like that a lot. Okay. Could you give me some details about what you mean exactly? No. Hard to type and speak at the same time. I'm assuming you're talking about internet platforms or online platforms. Is that right? I actually am studying to get my teaching license for teaching in the United States right now. And we are studying through a kind of MOOC, which is a massive, oh boy, I don't even remember what MOOC is. Um, hold on, let's look up what MOOC is. MOOC. Massive Open Online Course. There we go. Okay, so a MOOC is like my writing course, for example, right? So my writing course is open to anyone around the world to attend, right? This is a massive open online course. So even now you're seeing some really high level institutions, educational institutions, who are offering these free online lectures. I mean, you guys are studying right now through Facebook, right? This is an example of a new online, very good gateway. I like that, an online gateway to education. Mm-hmm. Homeschooling, distance education, very good. I like that phrase as well. Oh, you guys are doing very well. I like this. Again, I can't spell, but distance. Yeah, distance education, good. So studying from one country based on the curriculum in another country, right? Becoming quite popular. Yep. That's lowering prices as well as making education more convenient and accessible. Accessibility is seen as a big priority these days, I think, by educational institutions. People from developing countries or, people from all kinds of financial backgrounds, as long as they have an internet connection and access to a computer, they're able to take these distance education courses. Very good. And homeschooling, Asma, that's interesting. Homeschooling. You could say homeschooling is on the rise. I didn't realize that, actually, but it makes sense. Maybe that could be linked to what I was talking about earlier, as we tend to prioritize basic competence. Those parents who have maybe higher ambitions for their children may be looking for alternative ways to educate them. Perhaps if you have the financial resources, homeschooling could be preferable. Homeschooling, or you're also seeing a decline, I think, in boarding schools. A decline in the prevalence of boarding schools. Are you guys familiar with boarding schools? I wonder if that is a popular phenomenon around the world. I'm not really sure. Boarding schools are when you send your high school student or middle school child to a school, a private institution. Oh, sorry, you guys, you're not able to see that. To a private institution that is not located in your city, kind of far away. They spend the whole school year at that place. Let's see, YouTube channel education. Change in teaching aids. Theory is made more understandable using digital videos. Very nice, I like that. That is a good idea. Weebie, I'm not really familiar with that. Sorry, I should have waited for you to finish. Webinars, yes. Ooh, nice vocabulary, good. Yep, more interactive methods of learning. Yeah. Yeah, more interactive, what's the word I'm looking for? Interactive, oh, I'm blanking on the word. Learning interface. right? Or learning interfaces. Um, so a learning interface is the thing that you actually interact with, whether it's like a pen and paper is not a very interactive learning interface. But if you're using a tablet, you can actually interact with the content or interact with the professor, and that can make a more engaging learning environment. Um, Very nice, you guys. We have some great input. You guys are helping me a lot. Um, Hello, Dewan. Welcome. So I think that's a pretty good list here for this question. Let's go ahead and move to the next one. What is your opinion on the way languages are taught in schools? I know all of you can speak and write and read and listen in English to some degree, well enough to understand this class. So you must have some, if not strong opinions, at least some opinions in general about this topic. Um, let's start with kind of positive or negative. I mean, do you feel, what are some good things about the way that languages were taught in schools for you? Think back to my own language learning days. We studied with a native speaker of Spanish when I was in high school, and I thought that was good. I think that is one factor that you could comment about, is the use of native speakers in the classroom. Whether you think that's a good thing or if it's unnecessary. There are certainly some advantages, I think, for the students, but also some disadvantages for the education system. The country where I live now, there's actually a decline in native speakers in the classroom. I'm just going to put that here, native speaking instructors or teachers. And that is because it was actually causing problems in the development of English language educators who are not native speakers. So I live in Korea, so like English teachers who are Korean, they kind of were able to sit back and allow the native speakers to do most of the teaching. So they didn't really develop the skills in teaching a language that they probably should have, right? So the education system was like, oh, we're paying all this money to bring over these native speaking teachers, but really the effect is that our own Korean speaking English education is going down just because it wasn't as necessary. So they actually kicked a bunch of native speaking teachers out. But I'm not seeing much feedback from you guys. Do you feel positive or negative about the way that languages are taught in schools these days? I'm going to give you a little bit of language education vocabulary or terminology here. There's a communicative syllabus, or a communicative style of teaching, where you're focusing on kind of the social aspects of learning or the social aspects of communication in a different language. Focusing more on discussion and turn taking, question, answer, like that. There's also the functional syllabus. Okay, and this one, so the communicative syllabus is modern. The functional syllabus is a little bit old-fashioned or out of date. And this was popular back in the 90s and the 80s, where it was focused on like how to rent a car in English, how to order a plane ticket in English, how to ask for directions in English. It was kind of a how-to type of course, focusing on the language as a tool for achieving some aim rather than a way to communicate with someone. You see what I mean? Um, so actually, my school is really focused on the communicative syllabus these days, really emphasizing the role of a language as a way to meet people, right? As a way to make friends, right? As a way to learn about a culture, right? Rather than as a way to rent a car or as a way to buy a movie ticket. Um, so yeah, that's, I think, some good vocabulary for talking about language education trends. Let's see if I can think of any more. Um, the way that languages are taught in schools. Maybe I'll come back to that. I can't really think of anything more right now. I'm trying to think my own personal opinion. Of course, I'm a language teacher, so it's hard for me to think, from the other side. One avenue you could approach, or one factor that you could mention, is the amount of time spent in the classroom per week. Okay, so think about like how many hours a week did you spend in the classroom learning English, for example? Do you think that was too little or too much? And you could explain why. I think that would be a good factor. So the style of syllabus, the number of native speaking instructors, or the presence of native speaking instructors, and the amount of time spent in the classroom. I think those three factors should give you plenty of things to talk about when it comes to language education. All right, guys. Well, let's move to the next. How can the type of school you go to affect career success? How can the type of school you go to affect career success? Well, here we need to think about different types of schools, right? We've got vocational schools, okay, and there we're learning more practical skills, preparing for tech industry jobs or blue-collar jobs. Yeah. I'm not sure if you've heard that phrase before, a blue-collar job, but I think that would be good. So it sort of depends on your career goals, right? If your goal is to become, for example, a welder, I've heard that welders make a ton of money. It's a really high-paying job, at least in the United States. Or if you are fixing air conditioning units, or fixing elevators, or working on cars, right? My brother-in-law works in a mechanic's garage, kind of. He works for Mini, the car company, Volkswagen. So he fixes those, and he makes a ton of money. It's a really great career. So vocational schools can be a good road into that type of career. Then you've got liberal arts schools. You guys heard of liberal arts schools? Yeah, liberal arts school is like the school that I went to, where you're studying, it's a more well-rounded education. That's the positive way of looking at it. But you also, you go into a lot of debt, generally. It costs a lot of money, and the job that you get right afterwards is probably not very high paying. So it has, let's see, entry-level jobs for those who went to a liberal arts school are low paying. But the ceiling is typically higher. Okay? So that's one way to talk about or think about two different kinds of universities, right? There's a vocational school and a liberal arts school. All right, you guys, we're kind of dwindling off in numbers here, so I'm going to go ahead and move straight on. to our final question, what changes do you think will happen in the classroom in the near future? So obviously we're going to have technology will continue to have a profound impact. Any other changes? Maybe artificial intelligence may play a bigger role. I'm thinking like robot teachers. Also, flipped classroom. Have you ever heard of a flipped classroom? So a flipped classroom is when you study your lectures at home, and then in the classroom you practice the skills. Okay, so normally in a traditional classroom, you sit, you take notes while the lecturer gives you information. Well, a flipped classroom is just the opposite. So with the convenience and the prevalence of technology, video technology, and audio technology, it's much easier to deliver content offline, right? Allow students to engage with the content outside of the classroom. And then when they come back into the classroom, that's when you have them doing interactive activities. And that makes the classroom a lot more engaging, I think. A lot more active. It makes students more engaged and have maybe higher achievement than otherwise. What else? Any other trends? Can you guys think of any possible future developments in education? There's another trend in education called a boot camp. Usually I think of a coding boot camp, where for like 6 weeks you study coding, and the goal is to become a competent coder in just 6 weeks. It's a kind of cram course in one specific skill. I think we might start to see more boot camp style education. I'm seeing actually boot camps in English education as well, in language education. So instead of studying English maybe 3 times a week all semester, maybe you just have in the summer, you just have a 2-month or maybe 1-month English boot camp, where you just use English for 8 hours a day for 1 month. Right? That type of really intensive, focused, concentrated study could become more popular. Also, perhaps you'll have more student choice. As I said before, at least in American syllabus, it's more focused on standards now, having everybody learning the same. There's a kind of a pendulum that swings when it comes to things like education theory. So chances are the pendulum will come back around soon, where we'll have more student choice, more individualized instruction, instead of kind of standards-focused education. Okay? And actually, that idea of the pendulum is a really good way to talk about future prediction in general. If you were asked, what changes do you think will happen in the workplace in the near future? Well, think about what's happening now. Probably will go the other way in the future. Okay, so what are some trends in the workplace now? I think of like the open office environment, where there's no there's no individual workspaces. Everybody's working in a kind of open plan office. I think within the next 5 or 10 years, we'll switch back a little bit, and there'll be more focus on kind of getting things done privately, alone. I think that we're starting to think about creativity as something that only happens in a group, when I don't think that's actually the case. I think most of the most creative people are actually introverts and do their best work when they're sitting alone at a desk. So that idea of the pendulum, what's going to happen in the future? Probably the opposite of the trend that is happening now. So anytime you're asked a question about the future, that's a good way to approach the question. All right, you guys, let's see, a couple questions here. Still learning a language outside its place is a joke. Ah, yes. That's a very good point. That's a good opinion. Yeah, learning, for example, learning how to speak Spanish when you're growing up in a city in America with no Spanish speakers, it's always going to be a little bit of a joke. I agree. What does it mean, webinars? It's a good question. That is an internet seminar. Okay, so a seminar would be one professional or one kind of expert in a professional area who wants to deliver some information. So instead of kind of creating an offline event at a hotel or a, what am I thinking of? Some sort of conference room, okay, or conference hall. Instead of doing that, these days it's more common just to do it online and have anybody join. This is a kind of an IELTS webinar in a way. Okay, many people can join, comment, interact online. Similar to an online class, really. It just has a little bit more, the word webinar is used more with professional skills rather than academic skills. Yeah. So I could do a webinar on how to broadcast a lesson on Facebook. Okay, that's a kind of technical skill that I would be able to lead a webinar about. All right, you guys. Whew, I'm exhausted. Again, it's past midnight here, so I'm going to call it quits. I hope that you guys have learned some valuable vocabulary here and some good phrases. I'll just kind of scroll back through so you can see. Well, we had a lot of stuff on our first page. Yeah, so I'll share this document with the group in the comments for this video. And if you wait a few minutes, you'll also see the YouTube video posted there as well. Yeah, I want to thank you guys for coming, and I'll see you next time. Just as a reminder about where you can find all of our stuff, I'll just put these links up one more time. Remember, all of this stuff can be accessed through the app. So just go and download the app, and then you don't have to worry about any of these websites. Plus, you will be notified every time there is a live lesson. You will receive a notification on your phone. Thanks very much, you guys. Thanks for coming, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.